RKW is brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone. Download the Scooters Coffee mobile app today. Order ahead and save $2 off your first mobile order. Alongside Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I am Will Bowling. We are pleased to be joined by NFL Network Analyst Daniel Jeremiah, who you can see throughout NFL Network's coverage of the NFL Draft in Green Bay starting tomorrow. Daniel, we appreciate the time. I know probably a very busy schedule leading up to the draft tomorrow. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I absolutely love this event. So it's fun to be here in Green Bay. There's already people starting to flood into town. So it's a great place to have this.
I love it. Well, I know you are revealing your final mock draft of the year tonight at 7 o'clock Central on NFL Network. There's also not really a lot of speculation on who the Titans are going to take at this point, Daniel, with Cam Ward slated to go number one. As this process has gone on, why has he risen above everyone else? And specifically at that quarterback position, what makes him the unquestioned QB1 in this class?
Yeah, I just think you're looking at what he is right now, and then to me it's where there is to go. I mean, he's just got a lot of ability. He's got a lot of talent. There's some rough edges to clean up. There's nobody that comes into this process without that. But I think the distance between him and everybody else in terms of, I think he's the best right now. And I think there's just so much upside with him. It's two different things, right? Normally you have the quarterback who arrives, he's ready-made, but this other guy has more upside. We'll see if he catches him and passes him. In this draft and in this scenario, Cam Ward has both the highest floor and the highest ceiling.
We talked a lot early in this process, Daniel, about how maybe Shedeur Sanders is more a fit for systems that Brian Callahan has been involved with in the past, and maybe a closer comp to Joe Burrow and in that time he spent in Cincinnati with Zach Taylor. How do you see Brian adjusting what he does and what the Titans offense does to fit Cam Ward's strengths?
I think he can play on time. You know, he has the ability to extend plays and get a little bit loose at times. But there's long stretches where you can see him, get the back foot in the ground, see it, get the ball out where it goes. I think in some cases it's not that he can't do what Shedeur does. I would say it's probably Shedeur can't do what he does in terms of the extending plays and making some things happen a little bit more athletic and a little more urgent in everything he does. So I think it'll be fine with how they fit. I would imagine that he'll incorporate a little bit more movement in the play calls to just kind of take advantage of his skill set. But I think Cam Ward's fully capable of playing on time in the pocket.
Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network joining us this morning on RKW as we're just a day away from the NFL Draft in Green Bay. Daniel, when it comes to that second round, the Titans have the 35th overall pick right now in that second round. There's a lot of debate on, do you go and get Cam Ward, a young wide receiver, or do you fix another need in this Titans, big boat of needs, which is probably an edge of sort. If you are drafting and you see what they're trying to do you go get that young wide receiver for Cam?
Well, I'm going to give you a question off of a question.
Yeah.
If next year at this time, I told you that you got that defensive end and it ended up winning you one more game and your defense moved up 15 spots in the rankings, but the quarterback didn't take the next step. Would you rather have that, or maybe you lose one more game? Maybe the defense still stinks, but you come into this time next year and go, holy crud, we've got the quarterback playing great, and we've got a young receiver to go along with him. To me, it's all about the quarterback. It's all about the quarterback. You want next year at this time, you want to have the feeling that Washington has, that Denver has. Coming into this, going like, oh, we got that taken care of, and now we can go on to addressing everything else.
What's interesting, too, is what wide receiver will be there, because I know that we've talked a lot about Emeka Egbuka possibly still being there or Luther Burden, but we don't have a crystal ball. We can't see that. What do you realistically see that the Titans could go and get that would be worth it at that spot?
Yeah, I think there's a couple options. I mean, I think there's a lot of teams at the bottom of the first round doing their homework on Luther Burden. I would say of that group of top tier guys, he's the one that's most likely to be there, which would be a fun weapon to play with, especially what he does after the catch. So that I think there's a possibility that he could be there in that mix. In fact, he's my 35th player as I was just looking it up, and the Titans are picking 35, so that would be a perfect match there. but he's not alone in being worthy of that pick. The two kids from Iowa State are both really good, Jade Higgins and Jalen Knoll. I have them in the 40s and right at 50. So that's not without reason there. And maybe the Tennessee Titans, if some of these teams want to come up for these quarterbacks, if the quarterbacks all fall out of the first round, then maybe they could trade back a little bit, and that's where you could find some more value there with one of those other wideouts.
NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah is with us this morning. When you look at Cam Ward, right, going into the situation with the Titans, drafting number 1 overall means you probably got a bad team, and the roster's got a lot of needs on it. Mike Worganza and Chad Brinker said that yesterday, right, and Brian Callahan. If that's the case, and you mentioned if you get past year 1 and you say, whew, we got the quarterback taken care of, what does he need here in Nashville, or what would Cameron Ward need as it pertains, or what would you need to see to say, yes, that's a hit? Because I think year 1 for Bryce Young in Carolina, I think they were ready to, move away. How do you see that being the case for quarterbacks coming into the league now?
Yeah, and I was at the game where Bryce Young got hooked against the Chargers, and then he got a little break and then came back and then ended up playing well, and so that hopefully has a happy ending to that story. But to me, with rookie quarterbacks and young quarterbacks, the way I've always looked at it is I want to see guys who are just getting better. Like if you're getting better, that's the first thing. The second thing is, like, I'm not going to see it in long stretches as a young player. Jaden Daniels, that's rare, but can just so many of the flashes, like I need to see some of those flashes, like, oh, okay, if we can just get more of this, like that's the good stuff. I think with Bryce Young, what the concern was, A, he was not getting better, and B, like there weren't those high moments where, it was just kind of like, oh gosh, is this guy good enough? Like I haven't seen any of those flashes. Like Caleb Williams had a little bit of a roller coaster last year, but you saw his moments and you're like, okay, I get it. Like this guy's got all the ability in the world. We just got to kind of get there. And then Bryce Young, once he sat down, he came back. I don't know, how that helped him or aided him, but he came back, looked like a different guy. He was more calm. He was more comfortable. And then you started to see some of those flashes. So that's what I'm looking for, improvement, and give me glimpses of what this can look like.
So I know we don't take, front office guys or GMs at their word all the time, especially at the podium, right? We know when they're lying, or we perceive when they're lying, or just trying to give us a quick answer. One of those was Will Levis is still under this roster, is young and developing. And I'm of the mindset, and I've heard a lot of people say this too, you measure a guy by his third year. Will Levis is about to go into his third year. Do you actually think there's a future for a guy like him in Nashville to where he may start the season off in a position to compete, or is this a get him out the room type of situation here if Cam Ward is drafted to the Tennessee Titans?
I don't know Will well enough to give you the great answer on that. I would just say if they were comfortable with, Will as a teammate, I can see value in not wanting to punt him and develop him and see maybe he does. Maybe Cam gets in there and you're like, gosh, Cam's just really not ready at this point in time. It gives you some insurance. But more often than not, when you have a young quarterback, highly drafted young quarterback, and you bring in the first overall pick, you clear the runway. That's normal protocol. And you've got a couple veterans on the roster to kind of be the mentors that you would like for Cam. To me, Cam Ward has played so much football. Like I'd be surprised if they didn't pick him with the expectation he's running out there week 1 and ready to go. And if that's the case, then I don't really see the spot for Will Levis at that time.
Yeah. Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network, our guest this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Daniel, Shedeur Sanders is one of the more fascinating quarterback prospects we've had in the last couple of drafts. What do you like about him as a prospect, and what is going to have to happen around him for him to develop and be a successful QB in this league?
Yeah, I can't believe we made it this far without getting to Shedeur. This is like the longest I think I've ever had in an interview where it hasn't come up. But he is, whether everybody can like it or not like it, he's the face of the draft. He's the most recognizable player. It feels, and I'm not comparing them as players or people, but do you remember when Manziel came out? Like that was all anybody wanted to talk about was where Manziel's going to go and how is he going to translate to the next level? Like this has reached that level of intensity to me from the media side of things. But what I like about Shedeur, I tell people there's things you can debate about him and things you can have strong opinions one way or the other. the things you can't debate, the kid is incredibly tough. Like he has taken a beating and just gets up. Like he is a very tough kid. He's very accurate. Those are the two calling cards, and that's what you're buying on him. He protects the football. He doesn't turn the ball over a ton, throwing the ball into harm's way. So those are the pluses. The biggest, to me, the one big issue that he's going to have, and it's going to be the challenge for him, is he has got to speed up his clock. Like he doesn't play fast. And a lot of those sacks, the offensive line was terrible 2 years ago. It was a little bit better this year, but he's just not operating fast enough, and he's not twitchy or explosive enough to get away from free rushers. So he's going to have to speed up his process and speed up his clock, which, to be honest, is a hard thing to do. So that, to me, is his biggest challenge. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He doesn't have a huge arm, and he's not a great athlete. So you are a true point guard, which means you've got to play fast. Like Joe Burrow plays extremely fast. That's going to be the challenge for this style of quarterback. And, with Cam plays faster. Cam's got a bigger arm. If you restrict the space around Cam, in other words, like he doesn't have room to step into a throw, Cam can still drive the football with just his arm. Shedeur is going to need a little bit of space. He's not going to be able to drive the football. He can get it out, but he won't be able to drive it that way. So he comes with some pluses for sure, and there's some legitimate question marks and concerns, and I think that's why it's not just because of who he is and his dad and all the attention, but I think that's why he's drawn so much attention as a polarizing player.
In that same sentiment right there, with both of these Colorado guys, with Travis Hunter and Shedeur, had they gone to, in the sentiments of like playing faster, and if Travis can play both ways, had they play, let's go, Big Ten or SEC ball and not at Jackson State in Colorado, do you think there's a higher take to say, yes, Shedeur is a bona fide top 10 pick had he played at Georgia or Texas or Alabama? And the same for Travis, too. I know Travis still is, but there's questions, can he play both sides legitimately in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. To me, I think of the conference thing more along the lines of line of scrimmage guys. So it would be more like if you were a Colorado tackle, I'd be like, well, if you played in the SEC or the Big Ten, you'd be playing against NFL guys every week, and I'd have a much better feel for you. I think with the skill guys and even the quarterbacks, I can give you a long list of quarterbacks in the SEC, like Aaron Murray, who was ultra productive and, put up big numbers. Matt Barkley was at USC and put up 50 touchdowns. Like sometimes that doesn't always translate to the next level. You have to evaluate those individual skill sets at the quarterback and at the receiver position. So to me, that's more O-line, D-line, the competition you're going against, to me, can carry more weight and cause more concern. I think Travis Hunter could have played at Georgia. He could have done. I think he does everything at those schools as he did at Colorado. He's a really, really talented kid.
Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network joining us this morning on Arcade Dub. Two-parter for you, Daniel. When it comes to the running back position, are we seeing this more valued right now, just with what we saw last year with some of the backs in the league? And the Titans are serious about even adding another running back to a room where they've got a Tony Pollard and a Tajay Spears. What about like a fourth or fifth round running back you'd have your eye on?
Yeah, it's fascinating. The running back discussion to me is always interesting. I was talking to a couple teams in the last 24 hours, and one of them, we were talking about the impact of Jahmyr Gibbs and how that obviously proved to be a great pick, and the value in the running back. And then I talked to somebody else, and they said, yeah, but if you look at last year, look at the free agent running backs, like some of the best running backs in the league. Saquon Barkley, obviously, about Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. Aaron Jones, like these guys are all, you can get them all as free agents, so you don't even need to draft them. They're going to be good backs that get to the market. So it's very polarizing. My opinion is that if you have a team that's built up and you already have a good, you've kind of built up your offensive line in some of those key positions, then absolutely take one. It'll make a big time difference for you. Like the Rams, for instance, Kyron Williams, a good player. He had like almost 1,300 yards last year. He had one run over 30 yards. Saquon Barkley had 10. He had 13 when you add the playoffs. So like, yeah, you can get better, and there's a difference between good and great at that position. In terms of the running backs in that kind of middle tier, third, fourth round, I mean, there's some really good options. I love R.J. Harvey from Central Florida, who's like 5'8", 205, but he's a rocket. Like, if Tariq Cohen had a jetpack, that's who R.J. Harvey reminds me of. But he's a really good player. DJ Giddens from Kansas State's a fun one. You've got all kinds of options. I think ETN from Georgia has a lot of ability. I think he'll go a little later. So lots of backs in this draft.
All right, Daniel, I'm going to ask you about someone that is going to make us unique as an interview. And I know you do a lot of these this time of year, and you probably have not been asked about this guy because technically he's not a draft prospect. But as an App State Mountaineer, we now in Tennessee have a lot of loyalty to a Mountaineer quarterback, and Joey Aguilar, who is committed to Tennessee. But what's Tennessee getting in this guy? Maybe not on the draft profile yet, Daniel, but as kind of a gunslinger who's got a really interesting skill set entering Josh Heupel's offense.
Yeah, he's got a strong arm. I actually went to one game last year. It was the first time I've been back up there in forever. It was not a great performance for him or the team, so I'm not going to allow that to sully my opinion.
Sure.
But he's big. He's got a strong arm. He can move around a little bit, and he's not afraid. And that's a positive and a negative. He's going to take his shot and be very aggressive. So I think that offense is very quarterback friendly. I'm not so sure I love how it translates to the NFL there, but it is a lot of space, and they'll have weapons around him. I think he'll be fine. Now, it's talent-wise, he's not Nico, but he's going to be fun to watch. There's going to be a lot of big plays.
Following up on that real quick, Daniel, how has the NFL continued to evolve its opinion on that style of offense? Because Patrick Mahomes out of the air raid, he's a unicorn for a lot of reasons and was successful. But Hendon Hooker's drop a couple of years ago with the ACL, with that offense, like Jackson Dart coming from a similar like Art Briles coaching tree system with Lane Kiffin. It used to be that these systems were not run by teams who were supremely talented, so those quarterbacks were never making it in the NFL. But the half-field reads, the wide splits, are certainly unique to college football. How is the NFL changing, if at all, its opinion of quarterbacks coming out of systems like that?
It's darn near impossible to predict how it's going to turn out, because it's almost like you're playing a different sport, with the way that those offenses are run and with the difference in the hashes and everything else. And I go back to, like, it used to be the Texas Tech, Baylor, and it's all has the roots all going to what we're talking about. You've correctly drawn the line there, so of the tree. So it's still a challenge, but you've got to evaluate the individual skill sets and do your best to translate how that skill set's going to play. But trust me, it doesn't matter how great a player is or what system he's coming from. You're hoping and wishing once you pick him, because it's a different deal once you get up here.
Daniel Jeremiah has been our guest, NFL Network analyst on the desk this weekend for the NFL draft coverage from Green Bay. His final mock draft of the year out tonight at 7 o'clock our time here at Nashville and NFL Network. Excellent stuff as always, Daniel. Looking forward to watching this weekend. Thanks so much for the time.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you guys. I'll just say, look, I have to rank things. Draft cities, Nashville's number one.
Yes.
It's still number one.
All
we'll
right.
see if Green Bay can catch them, but there's still nothing has compared to Nashville.
I love
to
it.
hear
Their
that.
biggest
right
issue
answer.
is it's going to be in the 40s. So, Daniel,
Yeah.
that's the only thing you got to fight. It was nice in Nashville.
I think you're assuming that just because I grew up in San Diego, I'm soft. That would actually be a correct assumption.
Layers.
By the way, I
Daniel.
love San Diego. Petco Park is by far
Let's
one of
go.
the.
It's
the go.
Listen, we take a trip there almost every year just for the games and the environment. Beautiful city. The one California city I would live in is San Diego.
There you go. See, we all agree on everything. We agree
Right.
Nashville's a great draft
That's right.
city. The Padres are great, and the Dodgers are the devil. And I hope you guys
I
have a
love
wonderful
that.
day.
Amen. Thank
Even
you,
more
Daniel.
so.
Appreciate the time. There's Daniel Jeremiah with us here this
Appreciate
morning.
that.
The Dodgers, the devil. Great way to
Jimmy White
to
gonna
wrap
have something to
It's
say
a
about
mess.
that.
let's go to Jim
That
in
rivalry
Nashville on
is
line
real.
1. It's great.
I'm telling you.
Great stuff with Daniel Jeremiah. We'll react to some of that coming up next. Wrapping up hour 3 after this.